Hello, I'm Varsha Chanda from Envisions Institute of Development, and my co-authors are Harsha Mehta, C4D Officer, UNICEF Lucknow, and Dr K Baviskar, Deputy Director Health Services, IEC Bureau, Government of Maharashtra. I'm presenting a paper on how Aristotle helped in reducing COVID-19 related stigma and discrimination in Dharavi, a major slum area of Mumbai, the financial capital of India. Quoting Erving Goffman, stigma is an attribute that is deeply discrediting. It sets a process of othering. COVID-19 pandemic has resulting into othering of people everywhere, including our health workers. Stigma happened in Mumbai's Dharavi area as well. Around 6.5 lakh people live in Dharavi. With a population density of 2.27 lakh per square kilometer, in comparison, Mumbai city has 0.19 lakh per square kilometer population density. This is a challenge to COVID-19 prevention behaviors like physical distancing and hand washing. Dharavi is a place where 10 people often live in a single room, more than 80 people share a public toilet, and where many houses do not even have running water. The first case of COVID-19 was reported in Dharavi on 4th April 2020. As the virus spread, so did the stigma. The rising COVID-19 cases also gave rise to stigma in the locality. It provoked social stigma and discriminatory behaviors against people perceived to have been in contact with the virus, and also against people of certain backgrounds like migrants, health workers, ambulance drivers, people living in slums, etc. There was stigma around testing, as well as around quarantined people. House owners started discriminating against tenants. A terminology, owners and renters, was coined as part of the othering. Three factors contribute to stigma. COVID was a disease that was new and for which there were still many unknowns. People are often afraid of the unknown, and it is easy to associate that fear with others. Confusion, anxiety, and fear among the public started a process of othering, resulting in a serious impact on COVID-19 prevention and management. A WHO guide note postulates that stigma can undermine social cohesion and prompt possible social isolation of groups, which might contribute to a situation where the virus is more, not less, likely to spread. This can result in more severe health problems and difficulties controlling a disease outbreak. And that happens because potentially stigma can drive people to hide the illness to avoid discrimination, prevent people from accessing necessary health services immediately, and discourage them from adopting healthy behaviors. Therefore, it was necessary to address stigma to manage the pandemic. So, how did Aristotle help? Aristotle taught that a communicator's ability to persuade an audience is based on how well the communicator appeals to that audience in three different areas: logos, ethos, and pathos. Considered together, these appeals form what later rhetoricians have called the rhetorical triangle. Logos appeals to reason. Logos can also be thought of as the content of the argument, as well as how well a communicator has argued his or her point. Pathos appeals to the emotions and the sympathetic imagination, as well as to beliefs and values. Pathos can also be thought of as the role of the audience in the argument. Ethos appeals to the speaker's character. Ethos can also be thought of as the role of the communicator in the argument and how credible his or her argument is. Noting that attributes of the rhetorical triangle need not appear in one single individual, UNICEF built a multi-stakeholder pathway in congruence with the socio-ecological model. This alternative pathway looks at stigma more as a fallout of social, cultural, political, and economic factors, including caste, class, gender, and income. The intervention involved the State IEC Bureau of the Department of Health, Government of Maharashtra, resident welfare associations, faith leaders, SHGs, youth organizations and networks, frontline workers, community leaders, local non-government and civil society organizations, faith leaders, key influencers including children, etc. These stakeholders were categorized with respect to their dominant appeal to the community, logos, ethos or pathos as defined by Aristotle's rhetorical triangle, and communication content was developed accordingly. For example, IEC Bureau had the ethos appeal, while NGOs had the pathos appeal. The frontline workers had all three. Their position as primary counselors on health matters provided reasoning to the communication. Most of them were already trusted source of information, and their strong relations with the community also appealed to the emotional side. UNICEF, along with its technical partner Envisions Institute of Development, planned a series of online trainings for the stakeholders. The purpose of the trainings was to build skills for handling stigma through peer enrollment and use of pathos and logos. Positive campaign was carried out through this to give uniform messages. A handling of stigma and discrimination guideline was prepared along with the IEC Bureau for ethos. Counseling training was given and counseling centers through NGOs were set up by UNICEF. Feedback from the community was collected to ameliorate interventions. The skills content was customized to the expected role to be played by the stakeholder. For example, those expected to provide pathos were exposed to a more comprehensive communication skills content, whereas those expected to provide logos were exposed to a simplified technical content on basis of COVID-19, its transmission, prevention, etc. The intervention successfully reduced COVID-19 related stigma in Dharavi. Tracking of results was done through success stories collected from the field using innovative methodologies. The stories revolved around several topics like those given here. Detailed stories are presented in the paper. I present here two stories. 43-year-old Dharavi found that many of the community members were not accessing services due to misinformation and rumors around COVID. Triveni and her colleagues were trained on using communication skills to negotiate behaviors. They were further trained to use their pathos and ethos appeal to get community to back access services like immunization, ANC, and the community to be kept connected. The second story I would like to share is of 14-year-old Sania from Rafiq Nagar, who was trained to use communication on community engagement and social mobilization. The pathos appeal of young Sania was seen as she got together a group of youngsters to organize combating the discrimination by owners against the renters. The challenge was stigma and discrimination. Selection of stakeholders according to their appeal, logos, pathos, ethos, was a basis of strategic stigma communication campaign. Multiple stakeholders have permitted simultaneous communication. Same key messages reaching through different sources which appeal to logic, emotions, or trust. This produced a megaphone effect to the key messages. Various stakeholders together facilitated creation of an echo chamber where messages resonated with the community. The success stories show that use of Aristotle's rhetoric triangle actually worked to produce positive results. Replication of such a strategy is a low-cost and easy-to-scale-up solution. The results are reduced stigma in Dharavi and one of the major highlights of this pandemic. Thank you for your attention. Our apologies that Aristotle will not be available to answer your queries, but the authors will be happy to help you out and can be contacted on the email IDs given here. Thank you.